Look, the old industry is dead, and there's a I don't know, the Deadline Strike Talk. It's a podcast. There were some interesting takeaways from that podcast about the strike. Since we're on this, I'll just give the highlights. This is from David Poland's Hot Button, which I think is one of the best, most common sense blogs about entertainment. But effectively, that what they're saying now is that tech is controlling the negotiations and it's just going to eat the film entertainment business and vomit it back out into the garbage, just like they've done with every industry. When you look at big tech, when they move into an industry, they're literally like the mafia, looking at hotels and saying, well, how do we get like 20 or 30% of the hotel business? How do we get 20 to 30% of the business of taxi cabs? How do we get 20 to 30% of food delivery and restaurant business? They literally come into, look at big tech, take a wide view and take a very big step back. You look at what big tech does. They take industries they have no experience in. They offer some tech, some sort of brilliant
a tech shortcut, through tech.
And then they take 30%. Okay, this is what they've done to the entertainment industry.
They did it to the gambling industry too.
To gambling, big tech comes in and destroys everything, every industry that it's become a part of by adding convenience. That's it. That's all they add is convenience, right? I don't need to go and search and go to Best Buy or the used DVD store to pick. I can just get this streaming service and I have 5,000 movies. Okay, but legacy companies could not have moved into streaming. They'd be better off financially now because cable would still be over 90 million domestic households if they had not moved into streaming. That's huge. Now you're seeing shows. Look at all of these shows, the legacy media shows, the late night shows, all of them are less than 50% their high of ratings, all of them. That's why the Strike Force 5 is not even resonating. And I guarantee the numbers for that are not going to come out. And the last thing from this podcast is the AMPTP wants to break the WGA and never wants to deal with a talent union again. They're looking to break the union. Yep. That's the goal.
Yeah. So a couple things. Number one, yes, the tech companies want to turn show business into the gig economy.
Right.
That's really their goal. Number two, you can't really fault the streamers for the fall of the network TV, CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, for their failure. They failed themselves. They had the cable marketplace, they had the over-the-air marketplace, and the stuff that they were making was crap. They literally handed over their audiences. There's no reason to watch them anymore.
They didn't retain their audience. Yeah.
Pardon me?
They didn't fight or retain their audience.
Correct. They did not fight for their audience. They just handed over to HBO. Let them have some incest and a kid being pushed out of a tower and a little bit of nudity and they just circled the wagons, which is what they're doing now. They lost that fight. They did not have the guts to go in there and really fight hard for the audience. I don't blame streamers for that.
Well, I mean, I blame the studios for even deciding they wanted to pursue streaming. But I mean, I made the exact point you're making in a video I dropped today, Paul. They got lazy. They got lazy, yeah. And it showed, and the audience went elsewhere. And that's nothing new. But Chris is spot on. Tech, all they do is they're locusts, they're vampires. They don't offer anything other than perhaps the veil of convenience. They come into entire industries. They look at what happened in the real estate industry. Look at what's happened to finance. Look at these things that are now basically operated on this tech backbone that overly complicates everything and removes humanity from the equation, which I guess is their goal. And at the same time, really doesn't, at the end of the day, create something that has longevity. think about how quickly, once the tech has invaded different areas or different sectors, think about how quickly those sectors, as you pointed out, Paul, essentially started to fold in on themselves. You had lots of, everybody acquiring each other, lots of M&A activity, and things like that. This is unhealthy for an economy where you want massive amounts of competition, which drives innovation and growth. It drives a lot of other things. The tech industry doesn't really drive innovation anymore. If anything, they just drive a way to commoditize the humanity around them. And this is a point I've been making a lot right now, very, very frequently, is all tech is doing is commoditizing you from the ground up. And they've been doing it for a very long time, which is why the impression that things are free is complete baloney sausage.
Well, here's how it goes right now. So tech used to be a service industry in the sense that it would streamline certain things that were difficult and sell that stuff to you. Now they're becoming more administrative. They are actually taking away their service function of what they want to do, and they're now have become the Trojan horse, where first they'll get rid of the bottom of the line people, then they'll go to the next tier, and then they'll go to the next tier, and eventually they will control the actual distribution of entertainment, at least in Hollywood. That's what it is. What's fascinating is the fact that SAG and WGA are seeing this. They're saying, we do not want this industry to be a tech company. We do not want there to be one Netflix running all of Hollywood. And it's going to be not just Netflix running all of Hollywood. It's going to be algorithms contributing to the content that's going to be on Netflix. That's going to be Hollywood. That's how they see it. And the fact that there are certain players in the corporate sphere, especially in the AMPTP, that don't see the fact that big tech could literally get rid of their jobs as well within a decade if they acquiesce to the tech, new tech that's coming in, is basically just not seeing that their industry will be a myth by the time their grandchildren become adults.
The challenge is, again, when there were all these revenue streams, Netflix can point to their business model and say, you people who love making stuff for the sake of making stuff because you're entertainers, that's really what drives you. This is all the money we have to give you, take it or leave it. That's what's changed.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out here. But thank you, Sandrock, for getting us down the Drew Barrymore strike path. But so after this meeting script, I got to ask though, real quick, and this is my final question on it. Is it more so a situation where you guys feel like you're getting a little bit closer now, or what's going on? What's the situation? Are things still where they were when this started, or has it been progress?
Well, there has been progress. The AMPTP has provided better counter offers in some of the other aspects, mostly in monetization style of things, but they've also opened up a bunch of loopholes, and that's really where this line in the sand is being drawn right now. Is the WGA wants to make sure that whatever deal they have, they can look at it over the course of the next 3 years and realize, yes, the studios are not going to take someone internally and put them in the position of what should be a union member and have them control how the show will go. In that regard, for instance, one of the biggest loopholes was the showrunner control of the mini room. And the idea is that they don't specify that the showrunner has to be a union member. So that means that an executive producer at Disney or Warner Brothers could be appointed the showrunner. And if they decide to use the mini room by the way that they want, as opposed to having the option of the showrunner saying, no, I'm not going to only hire 2 writers. I'm going to hire 5 or 6 or what have you. So if the studio says, okay, well, we know that every showrunner is going to go with the 5 or 6, so we will just appoint our executive producer as the showrunner of the project of the mini room we want to do. They'll hire the 2 writers, and we still end up paying the same thing we did 3 years ago as we are doing now. So they want to close that type of loophole. They also want to close and make it far more defined with regards to what the studios will be using generative AI for, and essentially trying to get them to just not entertain the use of the idea for creative work. Now, here's something that's kind of fascinating. there hasn't been any protests on the WGA side from using AI for audience analytics, gathering information and churning out a result. And there's only one studio that's invested in that, and they've actually cut back on that investment this year, and that was Warner Brothers. So that's kind of interesting, is that they're basically saying, if you want to use AI, you can use it for your own offices. You can't use it for our writer's room, and you cannot. And by and large, for the SAG, they're also saying you cannot use it for actors. You cannot scan their likenesses at one point for one project and then use it ad nauseum in anything else without providing compensation. If you want to scan an actor or background actor, major actor, what have you, you have to go through them. They have to own the licensing rights of that, or their estate would have to own the rights of that, and you would have to pay them for every usage, because that's only fair. It's you yourself are your own property, and you should not be losing that. Because what happens if we get into a very dystopic world where you're scanned under a Big Brother system all the time, but you sold your likeness rights to a studio? Every time you walk out in public and you get scanned, you have to pay that studio because you don't own your likeness rights, and that system now requires you to pay the studio for them scanning you, or just for like security purposes or whatever you have in public. That is the horrifying nature of what SAG is trying to fight against.
On that note, Snakes and Funeral says, IATSE worker here. Yes, AMPTP wants to replace unions with an app on your phone.
This clip was taken from Midnight's Edge in the Morning, which streams live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Midnight's Edge main channel. There, you can send in your live questions and comments before clips and full stream replays are uploaded to Midnight's Edge live archives. We are also on Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey, and Facebook, so smash that like, help share, subscribe, and join us.